Alright guys, and welcome back to Armoured Warfare. Now today, we're not going to be looking at gameplay as such, but we're going to be looking at AFVs as a class. Because I've seen a lot in games when people are going, oh, AFVs, go spot, AFVs, why didn't you do that, AFV noob, and then people don't know what spots, and they go like, oh, LAV 600, go spot. And you need to set this clear, the AFV is the spotter, but certain AFVs are different. A lot of AFVs, some are going to be passive, some are going to be active, some are going to be both. They can do both. Such as the Weasel, let's take for example. Very small, very mobile. It's got an amazing view range, but also it can actively scout. You can drive it around, as we saw last video. You can drive it around happily, and you can fight happily. But there are certain tanks that struggle to do that, such as, well, oh, okay, BMP here. The BMP is quite large, and it really suffers from lack of gun depression. It can brawl, but it's not as effective at brawling as, say, the VBL or the Weasel. VBL and Weasel are the two best AFVs, I would personally say, out there. So, what do? We've gone through it. They're scouts. They're the light tanks of the game. If you go to World of Tanks, your AFVs are going to be your light tanks. Bit strange, yeah, but that's what they are. That's how I see it, and that's how I like to look at them. But don't force an AFV driver to do what you want him to do. Let him play to the strengths of his vehicle. He's playing it, he knows how it's being played at the moment. So, what sort of strengths does the AFV class have? Well, the mobility. The mobility of the AFV class is unprecedented in game. They're much, much more mobile than their MBT counterparts. They're more mobile than their light tanks. Tank destroyers, they're generally more mobile as, but they are tracked as well. So the wheeled aspect are generally faster, but they're not as good at turning or neutral steering, which can be a bit of a problem when you need to get out of a tight situation fast. They're also very quick to accelerate. That's also a nice thing about them. The VBL, I think, can go up in excess of 100 kph in this game, which is bloody fast. Just putting that out there. That's quick. But also, how do you effectively use the mobility? You've got the mobility already. We know what mobility we've got. This little VBL in front, he's quick. So how are we going to put that into practice then? Right. So we don't want to use our mobility on front line. We don't want to be up with MBTs, and we don't want to be brawling with them. That is an absolute death sentence for an AFV. We want to use it to a quick, mobile, flank, or get to a position rapidly tank. Alright? If you get to your scouting point that you know works for your tank, it works for you, you're good there, then quickly rush there, use the mobility, rush up to that point, and start spotting. Start your spotting, but don't risk yourself, alright? We don't want to risk our AFVs at the start of the match. That leaves the team blind. So, also, we can also use a mobility halfway through the match, midway through the match. You can rush around. If one flank falls, you can use your AFV's mobility to quickly get to a flank and try and rush around behind. As you can see here in the video, all the AFVs on our team, we've pushed up the left flank and we're pushing round into the enemy spawn. You can see that via the X's on the minimap, because this is the encounter game mode. The flag being in the center. So we're going to push up and round and see if we can get up behind them. MBTs would really, really struggle with this. Light tanks and tank destroyers not so much, but the AFV is the king of the flanking, as well as light tanks. So we can use our fantastic mobility to do that. Also in the Weasel, just a little example there. Do you remember when we rushed up round the river to here? Yeah. That's also another really key point. You should go check out that Weasel gameplay to see what I'm talking about. It's a perfect example of AFV gameplay. Pushing round and flanking the tank destroyers, using that gun to shoot at them. So we go on to the next bit of our AFVs, which is our firepower. The firepower of the AFVs is not fantastically great, but it suits the class that they play. We generally are armed with autocannons and ATGMs. I say generally because not every tank in the game has an ATGM. But literally the majority of every AFV has some form of autocannon. The only one that doesn't come off the top of my head with an autocannon is the BDM1, or the BMD1, sorry, which has a 73mm gun. Single fire, single shot gun. Game finished there. Good match. But how do we use these guns then for our AFV class? Because an autocannon is not fantastic against a 1v1 on something as such. It's going to be a lot harder to fight something at longer range unless we're firing HE. HE on the autocannons is a really, really good combo to be using. But on the single shot cannons, how do we play them? Generally, what I would recommend for the single shots is the AP rounds that you get. The armor piercing, fin stabilized, discarding saber rounds. If it comes with them, if there's any in the future, if it comes with them, I think they would be the way forward. But the primary firepower, if your AFV has it, is an ATGM. An ATGM really, really does hurt if you hit something with it. Bradley, take that for instance. The Bradley is under the 25mm Bushmaster, which is absolutely god-awful. It can't hurt much, except with HE, but it doesn't really do much damage. Or you can get a 2-salvo ATGM launcher. Oh, so what's that like then? I think the missiles, rockets do about 400 to 500 damage per hit. Right then, that's, you know, that's a pretty lot of damage for 2 rockets. You can fire one, 2 seconds later you can fire another one. Wow, okay then. So what are ATGMs like then? Well, ATGMs, as you've seen in previous videos, is you lock on for about 2 seconds, so a second and a half, and then you can fire them and they'll follow the mouse. Alright then, so they're very, very accurate, depending on... You don't want to be using them at close, that's for sure. Close range ATGMs is a... Why are you doing that? Unless you're in the swing fire, of course, and that's a no-brainer why you're doing that. But, using the mobility, we've got to our good spot. We have an ineffective autocannon, or we have a single shot gun, and we don't want to fire particularly at the enemies, because it will either be ineffective and give away our position, or we'll do hardly any damage to them, we'll just tickle them a little bit. So we loaded our ATGM, and we're in our bush. And we fire it. Now, as we fire it, we get spotted. Don't forget, we get spotted. Sorry, Bradley coming around the corner here, and the armor is not very good. We'll get to that later. The ATGM then shoots his way into the enemy, and bam, 400 damage. Using the mobility, we can pull back, reload the ATGM. If needed, we can push up again, see if we can fire it. We may still be spotted. Don't get me wrong on there. We might still be. But the ATGM is the core firepower, as well as the... I'd say 30mm autocannons are probably your best bet on an AFV. You know, they're probably the better. The BMP3, I think this is what we're driving here. This thing is also under the 100mm gun, ATGMs, and the 30mm. Now, the 30mm autocannon is a lot better than the 100mm. The 100mm is good for just quickly finishing off an enemy on very low HP. Just bam, HE round, destroy him. Or, well, that's really, yeah, I was about to say RT, but the 30mm autocannon really does make use of anything else. It really does destroy them. ATGMs can be used on enemies with a lot of HP. Enemies with big amounts of armor that your autocannon can't go through, because I don't think the 100mm fires AP. So you use the ATGM, you hit the enemy, and bam, there you go, there's your damage. So now you're going to pull back. You're going to do your scouting for the rest of the match, quickly spot for MBTs, see what you can do there. Now, halfway to the end of the map, you're going to start to, you know, what's it called? Go hunting. Go hunting for low HP enemies. So you're going to use your autocannon or your 100mm for that. But your armor on your tank, your AFVs, is abysmal. That brings us on to our next bit. The armor of an AFV should never, ever, ever be relied on to do any form of protection whatsoever. Yes, you get era. Yes, that may block against, you know, bloody heat rounds and rockets. But most people are going to be firing AP, aren't they? It's going to be ineffective. It's going to be useless. Don't ever rely on your armor. And if you feel slightly like you're going to take any form of hit, do not do it. You're never going to bounce around. It's not even going to be funny to take a T80 round, is it, in your Bradley or your Warrior? That's not funny. You don't want to do that at all. That's really armor. There's nothing you can say about it. There's absolutely zero armor on these tanks. That's not what they're about. But they are. Their little class perk is designations. Designation is quite handy. That allows you to lock onto an enemy vehicle, and that does a lot of damage to them. A lot. It will make their camo rating really poor, so they can't get unspotted very easily. And also, it will make the chance to do high amounts of damage and crit damage, it's just going to go through the roof. Every round you hit them will be doing loads of damage. It really screws the enemy up. So you want to use your designation on the right enemy vehicle. If you've got a half health BMD1 and you've got a T90 Vladimir coming around the corner, what are you gonna designate for your team? Not the BMD. He's going to be useless. You'll get one of your friendlies blow him up. You'll designate the T90 quickly while you have the 3 seconds it is or so to designate the target and pull back. You're just going to run. You're not going to fight the T90. As soon as the T90 is engaged with other friendlies, then you can push in and then you can do your damage that you need to do. You're digging me? You're getting where I'm trying to go with the AFV gameplay here. It's the most basic form of AFV gameplay, and I want to teach you guys how to play it effectively. So in summary, what do we have? So we have small scout tanks that are very fast, they can be powerful in the right circumstance with the right players, and they have absolutely zero armor, using the class perk of designation to make them even more effective than they can be. And as always guys, the golden rule to every MMO game is be situationally aware. Know what's going on around you. If you don't know what's going on around you, you're dead. Simple. There's not even a waste of time saying it. You're going to die. So guys, I hope you found this informative. And as always, thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.